What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Loi Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping very, very well indeed. On that note, you might have noticed in the last couple of videos the dodgy tash. Me and a few of the lads, we are doing Movember this year, and we're kind of raising awareness for men's mental health and things like that. So, yeah. I hope you're all keeping well. As I said, mind yourself, mind your mates, mind your family. There's a link in the description down below, and I'll leave one in the comments as well, just to my member page. If you have any spare change or anything like that, any contributions are much appreciated to the cause. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. Of course, as you can see from the title, we are going to be looking at our pre-season predictions. It's kind of the time of year we all love, because we get to look back at the start of the season and see just how foolish we were being. We're going to be, of course, looking at our Premier Division League table predictions in this video. And make sure to stick around to the end of the video as well, because we are going to be looking at our player of the year, who we said was going to be the player of the year. We're going to be looking back at who we gave a shout out to for young player of the year. What else is there? Top goal scorer, and our pick for FAI Cup winner as well. So make sure to stay tuned for all that good stuff. But without further ado, let's jump straight into the video.
League table prediction time, lads. 10th place. I've a feeling this could be unanimous. I'll kick us off. I've gone for the students UCD.
Yeah, 10th place UCD. It was fairly unanimous amongst the lads as well. But yeah, I think that was a bit of a no-brainer really. I think everyone was going to go for the students to come 10th this year.
I'm actually surprised, because I've gone for Drogheda, but I didn't expect either of you to do it. But it is unanimous once again for 9th spot.
Here we go. First failure of the video, first of many. Drogheda United in 9th place. It's actually the three of us that were doing the video all went for Drogheda to finish in 9th, and of course we were all incorrect. They actually had a very good season. Kevin Doherty did an outrageously good job with them, and they'll be delighted with their progress this season. Obviously, a kind of a part-time setup there, and they've kind of overachieved, and they've done really well. So they'll be very happy with their season, and we were way off the mark with that one.
I've gone for Cork in 8th. I'll jump into them, but I think being up in the top flight for the first season, the fans behind them, the kind of club will be in a really good place, and I think that should be enough for Cork to just finish outside that playoff spot.
8th, I went for Cork, and I don't mind my logic here. You kind of think with a newly promoted side they'll get that kind of bounce from getting promoted, but it's been a bit of a disastrous season for them, to be honest. They were kind of cut adrift in 9th place, and it was kind of a comfortable enough playoff finish for them in the end. They weren't really bothering UCD at 10th, but they weren't bothering 8th place or anything really. And then they of course did go on to lose the playoff game as well, which is an absolute disaster. They do find themselves in the first division again next season. So yeah, a little bit off with that one, but I kind of understand my logic. I'm not a million miles away. 8th place, only one position, isn't it really?
Gone for Sligo in 7th, Sligo Rovers, and primarily due to the loss of Aidan Keane, their talisman from last season. I believe he nearly scored almost 50% of their league goals last season, so it's a hugely significant blow to lose him. I think he's gone over to League One.
In 7th, I went for Sligo, and I actually thought at the time they would consider that like a disappointing enough season for them, but they were actually finished up in 8th place, and 4 points off 7th, and only 6 points ahead of Cork in the end. So pretty poor season from Sligo for their standards. You'd imagine they should be kind of challenging for those European spots. Obviously the squad isn't really where it needs to be, but they probably would have came into the season with a little bit of expectation. Obviously losing, as I said, their Aidan Keane coming into the campaign wasn't great. Obviously a huge source of goals for them, and I think they had Max Mana this season as well, who they lost part way through it, who was a big blow as well. So yeah, a disappointing season for Sligo, and yeah, a little bit off in the prediction there as well. They did finish 8th, of course.
He's about to have gone for Sligo in 6th, and I've gone for one that hopefully causes ruffles some feathers. I've gone for Bohemians in 6th place, bottom half finish for them.
Bang on the money, Bohemians in 6th, and I was getting a little bit of pelters in the comments in that video. I was getting a little bit of stick. Like, I think everyone had Bows in that kind of 4th or 5th area, so to predict him in the bottom half was a big enough call. The two lads that Con and Adam that was in the video with didn't go for Bows in 6th either. They had a top half finish for Bows, so happy with that one. A good call early on, and yeah, proud of that shout.
Speaking of shells, that's who I've gone for in 5th. I've gone for a top half finish for Damien Duss. So I'm potentially a little bit optimistic, but I think I'm really happy with the fact that they got the business done very early.
5th place Shells, and actually said there that I was considering that to be a little bit optimistic for them, which in hindsight obviously is strange. But the two lads had Shells in the bottom half of the table. I think a lot of people probably predicted Shells coming in the bottom half of the table. You look at the kind of season and how it unfolded, obviously to give it a huge boost, but the two loanees from Hull, Harry Wood and Will Jarvis, came in and had a huge impact in pushing them into that 4th place finish. But the whole squad was fantastic throughout. Obviously Conor Kearns came in and kind of shocked the league, by being the best goalkeeper in the league. And yeah, and he was kind of considered like a poor signing. When I first signed, I thought he was coming in as backup. I thought we were going to sign someone else. So he's come in and been a revelation. Gavin Malloy, the back's been fantastic, of course, and there's so many players to name. Obviously, Jack Moylan has been incredible this year as well. Obviously, earned his move to Lincoln. So, yeah, the Shell Show at fifth. I'm happy enough that I envisaged him improving on the season before, but I didn't envisage it quite enough. Of course, they did secure fourth place, and they obviously got a European spot out of that as well, which is an incredible achievement from Damien Duff and his men. It's a really good achievement for them, and it's a fantastic season and one to really build on for next year. Obviously, they have a lot of work to do in the off season, but a cracking season for Duff. And I felt like I was being optimistic, and they finished ahead of me. So this shows you what a good job he did.
No, I've gone with the same. I've gone for Dundalk and fourth, and they kind of. The transfer policy, as you said, kind of got looking towards the UK. It's kind of they haven't brought in much, but what they've brought in is kind of these young British players that we don't know much about, but they're coming from decent academies potentially, so they could be strong options.
Yeah, fourth Dundalk, not a terrible shout. Not in all fairness, they'll be a little bit disappointed to have missed out on the top four this year. Obviously, went down to the very last day, it did look at one stage that they might actually nick it on the last day when Shells were trailing by 2 against Drogheda. But yeah, they'll be a little bit disappointed with their season. I think everyone kind of probably had them in the top 4, not really cracking the top 3. I don't think that anyone really envisaged that, but I think everyone kind of had them in that 4+ spot, so they'll be a little bit disappointed coming 5th this season.
Yeah, I would agree with you as well. I've gone for Pats in 3rd as well. I think Mulroney is a good sign, and it'd be interesting to see what he's like. But I think it's a good little bit of business, and Lonergan as well. I'm really excited to see. Obviously, it was fantastic with UCD and was a massive part, and then staying up last season. That's a really exciting transfer. Probably one of the most sought after young players in the league, nearly.
Pats in 3rd, bang on the money. Yeah, good call there as well. Obviously, they did finish where how many points off Derry? They finished 3 points behind Derry, so not a whole lot in that one. 2 points ahead of Shells as well. So yeah, good season for Pats, topped off of course with the FAI Cup win, which makes it a really strong positive season and a great ending for them as well. But yeah, finishing 3rd, it's a solid campaign for Pats. Obviously one that I think will look to build on, I think, next season. But yeah, I think I'm happy with that one, right on the money.
It's going to be an awful lot tighter, and I have gone for Rovers to lose their grip on the title. I have gone for Shamrock Rovers in 2nd place.
As you can hear there, I went for Shamrock Rovers in 2nd, and they of course did go on to win their 4th league title in a row. And I just felt that was like unprecedented territory. I felt like they were slowing down a touch, and I wasn't a million miles off of that assessment. I don't think Rovers were at their scintillating best this season. They obviously started the season poorly. They kind of grew into it over time and were kind of consistent in getting their results, and obviously led to them winning the title, which is a fantastic achievement as well, again for Bradley. But in the European games, they're really bad. Really poor showing in Europe. Obviously lost out in the FAI Cup final early on. So yeah, obviously winning the league's never a disappointing season, but I think Rovers fans would have liked to have seen a little bit more on the European front, because that feels like the next step for Shamrock Rovers if they're winning all these leagues. I think that's the next step that they have to take. So a bit disappointing on that front for them and for Irish football really as well, that we can't perform at that level as of yet. So yeah, a little bit disappointing on that front for Rovers, but of course it's been a fantastic season. Can't take anything away from them winning another league title. It's not an easy thing to do. So huge congratulations to them, and I was wrong. And I of course went with someone else to win the league who we will look at right now.
I just think Derry are going to be more hungry for it, and that's why I've got them top of the league. I think Rovers will probably potentially have more of a focus on Europe, and they'll potentially be kind of. I just thought that I think that President's Cup game is going to be significant.
When is the President's Cup game ever significant? Like, what am I even jabbering on about? Like, it feels like a big deal at the time because it's the start of the season. It's like, oh, Community Shield game in England, whatever, you kind of read into it or whatever, but it's just so insignificant really, isn't it, on the grand scheme of things. Like, but Derry did look good, and they have a really strong squad, and I expected more from the season. They did finish 7 points behind Shamrock Rovers in the end, which I think they'll be disappointed by. I think they will have seen a lot of games throughout the year where they've missed opportunities is the word I'm looking for. Missed opportunities. They dropped a lot of points. I think they dropped a lot of points at home this season as well, and that artificial pitch does not help them at all. The way with their style of play, they're a better side than a lot of teams they're playing, but that pitch actually suits a lot of teams that they're playing against, because you can't really get the ball moving on it at all. It's a really bad surface, and it's bobbling around, and it's an awful pitch. It doesn't suit the way Derry like to play. So yeah, I went for Derry to win the league, and I was off on that occasion. They did come second, but with all my shouts, to be fair, they were all within one place of being correct, so I'm pretty happy with that. I felt like it was a little bit of a predictable league this season, on the whole. Maybe Shells being the outlier in that front, but it was a little bit of a predictable. Like, you were never going to go too far wrong, I feel. But yeah, always a good to look back at and see. And I'm fairly happy. I'm not sure what to get, maybe three correct. Was it three bang on the money in the end? So I'll take that. It's pretty better than I've usually done. So we'll take that. Let's move into looking at who I went with for player of the year.
Have to go with a Derry man, and I've gone for Michael Duffy as well. I agree with Con. Think he could have a big year this season.
Yeah, I think the logic behind the pick was obviously Derry. I picked them to win the league, so I was going to go with a Derry man to win player of the year, and obviously Michael Duffy isn't in that conversation really at all. But 7 goals, 22 games. Obviously didn't play as much as you would have liked. Obviously 22 games isn't as consistent as you'd like to see him feature, but 7 goals is a decent return from him in the league. It's a good tally from that many games from a winger, so he had a decent season. He's obviously an outstanding player, and I think that was just the logic was I thought Derry would win the league. And of course they did miss out, and Michael Duffy didn't feature as much as you would have liked. So but yeah, it's always going to be a tricky one. I don't actually know who's going to win it this year. I think the 3 nominees are Jonathan Afolabi, Chris Forrester and Rory Keating. At the time of recording, I don't think it's been announced who's won that just yet, but obviously the only one you probably would have picked at the start of the season to do that would have been Chris Forrester. Afolabi hadn't really hit it off at all at Bows last season. Rory Keating, newly promoted striker, I don't actually know why he's in that top 3. He's had a great season, but he could get relegated. I don't know if he should be in player of the year conversations if you get relegated, to be honest. That's just maybe I'm wrong, maybe people disagree with that, but that's just, I don't think you can get player of the year if your team gets relegated. I think that's a bit wild, to be honest. But yeah, of course Michael Duffy was incorrect. Let's see who I went for young player of the year.
I've gone for young Johnny Kenny on loan from Celtic at Shamrock Rovers. I think he is obviously an outrageous talent. He broke into the Sligo side at 17, 18 kind of time, and yeah, really impressing. He scored double figures nearly before earning his move across the pond. Obviously hasn't worked out too well from over there, but I think coming back, I think he has the right attitude. He's a good lad. He's been on the channel before, really nice fella, and I think Rovers will really look after him, and I think he's a versatile forward as well, so he can play through the centre, he can play off to the right, off to the left, so I think that will be beneficial in terms of his game time.
Yeah, I went with Johnny Kenny, and it did seem like a clever pick at the time. Obviously coming on loan from Celtic to Rovers, obviously I was going to talk here about him being kind of a versatile striker, and you'll see a lot of minutes and stuff. He did play 30 times in the league for Shamrock Rovers. Obviously a lot of them would have been from the bench and things like that as well. He did score 5 goals, but it wasn't a very successful loan spell, let's just say that. Obviously he did win the league, can't take that away from him. Fantastic for him to do that, and is only 20 years of age as well, so plenty of time for him to put things right. I wonder what's the next move for Johnny. Going back to Celtic, I wonder will he kind of come back to Shamrock Rovers, will he go back to Sligo maybe, or something like that. It's hard to know what the best next step is in his development. It's hard to kind of see where he goes from here. I think he's on a long-term deal with Celtic when he went, it's 5 years or something, so he'll still be in their plans, and he's still so young that he can still come good. Of course he is very talented, but yeah, in terms of Young Player of the Year award, he is a good bit down that pecking order, to be honest. There's a good few lads ahead of him in the debate. Obviously your Jack Moylan's of the world and stuff like that as well. So yeah, he's not in contention for that award whatsoever, but he did win the league, scored 5 goals, 30 appearances for the champions, so it wasn't a terrible season, but it wasn't a good one, you wouldn't really say either, to be fair. It was a solid campaign from Johnny, but definitely expected a little bit more, I think. Top goal scorer, I actually kind of remember, I do remember who I went with here, and it is a rogue call, to be fair. Bit unlucky, but we'll see now.
I'm tempted to go with the dark horse shout, because I think everyone else is going to be, there might be an element of rotation. I think as you said, Boyd is such a focal point of the team. He's a target man. He offers something different to anything else that Shell's having there. And I think he will start pretty much week in, week out. I expect Shells to have a good season. Tariq Wilson whipping the ball in from the left. It says Shane Farrell from the right, Moylan and Matty Smith creating chances. He's on penalties. I'm going for Sean Boyd.
Okay, on the surface, doesn't seem like the best shout, but hear me out. And I actually let that roll a little bit longer so I could hear my logic, and I do stand by it, because Sean Boyd did suffer a bad injury this season. He's only played 10 games and he scored 4 goals in those 10 games. Obviously he's usually on penalties for Shells. He's a focal point of their attack, and I actually firmly believe that if he played 30 plus games, would he have scored 14 goals? It's very likely. It's very likely. Is near more or less a 1 and 2 right there before his injury, and 1 and 2 rate if with 30 games would have got him top goal scorer. So I think if he had to stay fit, he was well in the conversation. 13 goals, I think it was in the end. That was the top goal scorer list. Things of Afalabi, Moylan, was it 13 or 14? I think two of them are joint on it anyway. I think Sean Boyd would have been right in that conversation if he had stayed fit throughout the whole campaign. So I do think that was a little bit of an unlucky call, because I think he it was definitely a dark horse shout, but I think it wasn't a bad one. I think it could have actually worked out. It could have looked like a genius, because no one was really predicting that at the start of the season. So don't think that one was as bad as it seems on paper. But yeah, it obviously didn't work out the best for him. But he'll have a huge part to play next season with Jack Moylan, of course, heading back across. And it'll actually be interesting to see Shell's kind of adaptation to the style of play. Will he slot back in, because he's not really that Moylan type. He's a target man. And Shells obviously were playing a little bit more progressively as the season went on, with higher quality in the final third with your Jarvises and your Woods, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how Duff kind of readjusts Boyd into the team, or if he goes out and tries to find a different profile of forward. So really interesting, but that's obviously a conversation for a different day. Sean Boyd was not top goal scorer, but as I said, I think I was a little bit unlucky with that one.
Just missed now on the league title, but I think they will rectify that by winning the FAI Cup, I think.
Yeah, went with Shamrock Rovers to win the league, and my logic, it's obviously a shot in the dark. It's always a shot in the dark, and you're kind of, Rovers is such a boring pick. I don't actually know why I did that. Such a lame pick. I think they actually went out in the round of 16. Was it to Dundalk, I think, in Oriel? So yeah, really lame pick, and I do regret that one now, to be fair. But obviously it's just like, yeah, they're obviously, you imagine they're going to be thereabouts, so this is a safe bet. But yeah, obviously didn't work out. St. Pat's, of course, went on to win the FA Cup there last Sunday. So yeah, I was way off the mark on that call. I hope you did enjoy that video. I don't think I made as big a fool of myself as I thought I would coming into this, but obviously it was quite off the mark with a lot of the calls, especially towards the end of the video as well. But with my league table predictions, I'm relatively happy. I think they weren't the worst shouts. I think I got 3 correct, maybe 3 or 4 correct overall, and everyone that I got wrong, I think, was within one place of where they actually finished. So yeah, I'll take that. That's not too bad at all. But I hope you did enjoy the video, guys. We're gonna have plenty more coming, so make sure to subscribe. If you did enjoy, make sure to like the video as well. It will be fantastic and greatly appreciated as always. As I said, all the socials down in the description down below, we're uploading on them as well, so make sure to stay tuned for everything that we have coming out. And I hope you're all keeping very well, keep safe in these cold November months, and yeah, take it easy. Thanks a million. Bye bye.